quick background. Rooftop Housing is a sort of average size association. It's got about 6,000 stock mixed, and it's in a kind of mainly rural type environment in Worcestershire and Gloucestershire. My role within the organisation is project management, business planning, and a bit of performance management as well. I joined the organisation about 5 years ago. No background in housing at all. My background is in project management and PFI contracts. So I approached this really from the first project I got to do is the access to services, and that is how Rooftop was going to be providing services to residents over the next 5 years. So what we did is basically approached it from a project type of perspective, looking at the overall thing. What were we actually trying to do? And then trying to break it down into the components and see what we needed to do in each area. So what we've got is a fairly, first part of it was a review we did to see what we needed to do. So no surprise to anyone, we said we'd like to get our services online. So why are we going to get them online? Because if you look at some of the figures quoted, a face-to-face transaction is about £10, online transaction is 10 pence, big difference. We're talking also about self-service, so we're actually self-servicing the residents. They're doing the full transaction themselves. They're not sending messages around, they're actually completing the transaction. That's giving us better value for money both for the organisation and for our residents. It also provides more flexible services so people can access our services from home or anywhere, and also any time of the day. So we're talking really about channel shift, which is obviously the big area at the moment. I think this is fairly inevitable with things that have been going on in the last 5 to 10 years, but we still had to look at the aspect of face-to-face relationships. So we needed to bear that in mind in the planning. We also thought that we'd have some residents who would not get online for a variety of reasons, which people have been going through now. But what we thought was if you could get a critical mass of residents online, that allows you to transform your services. And we picked up a figure of about 85%. And if you look on this group here, we get there we go? No, oh, right. On the right-hand side, the group there, we've got about 100 people. And we're saying that if we can get all of those groups online apart from one, that's the 15%, we can deal with those other residents, those 15% who can't get online, in a different way, using remote workers, agile working, etc. So, the thing about this is, I think it's a fairly complex issue, so there's a lot of interrelationships going on here, one of which is the services themselves. So the first thing we thought was, if we're going to get residents online, we need to have services that they're actually going to want to use and get online and find easy to use and helpful. In 2009, we had 45% of our residents online. We also had, within the area, mainly rural, poor infrastructure, so that was another problem we were looking at. And then we had the costs to get online in terms of equipment and things like broadband contracts, and also the fact that social tenants and with the age profile of our residents tend to have low digital inclusion. We also obviously had the resistance to change, the ability to get people to change the way they did things. So we end up with a whole load of factors, and we've got a jigsaw here. We're trying to put it together in a way that gives us something to work with. And I would sit down many times with people and talk to them about various areas, things like getting people online, and they talk about the infrastructure, they talk about lack of computers, lack of training support, and it's very hard to focus in one area and try and put together some sensible plans. So what we actually did was come up with a roadmap, looking at the thing as a whole. Here are the things which are going to give us problems. So looking at the top areas, we looked at the actual web services themselves. We had good web services at that stage. We wanted to improve them, put more stuff online. So we've got over here, we've got the top level is about services online, talking about improving those services, putting more in, going for self-service, and also looking to see how people accessed the website, what they were using, what devices, were they using smartphones, making the thing easier to use and so on. We then moved to the next stage, which was looking at how residents actually got online, the digital inclusion side of things. So the area there we're looking at is what we do with Wi-Fi and schemes. Can we put more information into the areas? Can we use social media more? What do you do with equipment? So it's things like reconditioned business computers, TV adapters, everything you need to try to get people online. Third area was looking at how we dealt with events and making people aware of all this going on. So we did a lot of work with different people. Each of them library, we had lots of training courses, events, did stuff in our schemes. We had people out doing smartphone pilots and then coming in as residents doing training. Fairly mixed results for that. So you get some people are very interested, some areas would do very well, and others it would be quite disappointing the numbers coming in. I think that's a general thing I find going on with people. Moving to the bottom bit, we've also got things like the universal credit side, which is obviously we've already discussed through here. And then we looked at things like some of the external factors like the infrastructure. So one of the big problems for us was the rural environment. How do we get the infrastructure in place? So what we did a lot of work with the Worcestershire Superfast broadband teams, and we looked at what they were doing in terms of their plans for rollout of Superfast. And we had a lot of discussion with those, and we overlaid all our properties, our homes, with their plans to find out by the end of 2050 we'd have no gaps. So that allowed us to move back from that side. We also looked at broadband contracts, and we approached all the major suppliers and said, how about giving our tenants a discounted broadband tariff? Now, when we talk to people, we get quite a favourable reaction first of all, but as soon as you talk to their commercial people, the answer is always no. Why should they? So we took a slightly different tack and approached procurement for housing, and the big procurement organisations. They deal with 800 organisations, 3.6 million residents, and said, can you get one of your suppliers to provide us with some sort of rate directly to our residents? Most of these suppliers would do stuff business to business, but not business to residents. So we've got one of the suppliers, which is Social Telecom, which is sitting over there in the corner over there. And since last year, they've been providing broadband contracts directly to our residents to rates of £15.45 a month with local charges, including environmental. That's one just to let that sink in a second. So that's the plan, that's how it's worked. So what are the results? So the foot rate, if I go back one step, I'd say on there, if you can see, the ones that are in green, see that? The ones in green, the ones that have been completed. So what we're looking at here is a plan that's been going on for 5 years. Things that they're in green have been completed, and we're still working on some of the ones in the corner. And the sort of thing we're looking at now is we've got this national broadband contract, we're looking at a deal with tablets. Our residents have access to tablets. We support them together with Trent and Dove. We're just putting that in place at the moment, which means that the resident will apply for a tablet through a third party, Social Telecom. We have a fund in place from both Trent and Dove and ourselves. That goes towards paying for the tablet, and then the resident pays a direct debit, which pays off that tablet over a period of time. So we're effectively supporting Social Telecom in providing that deal to our residents, giving them a cheap tablet deal. Tablets, we've moved to that direction because what we were finding with the national tariff was that people were using old equipment and they couldn't get it connected, and they'd bring out a laptop which had been in a cupboard for 5 years, and they were trying to do stuff with it. So the idea of moving away from that to a tablet which comes plug and play, which has already got a connection, so something like a Wi-Fi device, will plug and play and set up already, so you turn it on and off you go. And that's the way we're trying to move forward. So we're trying to support our residents in that way. So next, moving on, so what results we had over this? We've got new websites in place. We've got a new resident portal improved. I've got down here, we've got over 2,000 residents actually registered for that. Barry, our communications manager, tells me now 2,400 residents signed up to that. So they get onto that, they can see their own personal information, they can perform transactions. We've got new services in place, things like reinvestment, so things like kitchens, when my kitchen is due to be done. We've got things like online appointments for our duty housing officers, ASB officers, income, so you can go online at 10 o'clock and book an appointment for the following day. We've got other things on there which are like, we can check the data we have on you, and within certain parameters you can change that data. We did a smartphone pilot. We gave smartphones out to a handful of residents, and we used them to access our websites to see whether they could actually use the website easily, what were the issues and problems. The first result of that was we put an app in place, so we would force redirection from our website through to that app, and since then we've improved further, so we've actually got a fully responsive website. So whichever device you're going into, it makes it easier for people to access the services. We've made a lot more use of social media and producing stuff like monthly email bulletins. And on the infrastructure side, as I said, we've identified that everyone will be covered by superfast broadband by the end of 2015. We've been doing a lot of work on remote working, so getting people out into their patches, the front-facing housing officers, to work in their areas and supporting people. We've now got 64% of people online at home, so that's up from 45% in 2009. But as I said, the target we're going for is the 85%. In detail, just some of the things we're doing. We've got Wi-Fi and schemes. We've got all the schemes have Wi-Fi in them now. We've just been extending out to provide Wi-Fi bubbles. The top on the left-hand side is a court in Broadway. It's a nice scheme. That's using open mesh aerials, which Pippa's waving over your head now. They just plug into power. So you put a line into your common area, and then you can use these, which are repeaters, which just plug into power around the building about every 15, 20 yards, which means you can start to easily extend out, which means you don't go into the resident's room or anything, there's no extensive wiring going on. We've also got kiosks going in. We've got kiosks in our reception areas providing free Wi-Fi in the reception area, and kiosks, these touchscreen kiosks, also in schemes going in at the moment. And they have also got Wi-Fi bubbles around them to allow people to use Wi-Fi fully using their own devices or to use the touchscreens in place. There is lots of good stories around this, but obviously time is limited. But I did see a lady actually going on and applying for a bus pass online, which is the sort of thing that we're trying to achieve. You notice also from the screens they're all bespoke, so you can actually put what you want the residents to see. So we put our own services on there and also promote our partners in terms of how to do stuff. And it makes it a bit easier to do things. We've had a lot of work done on our capita housing system. So we've been using capita to target residents in certain ways with certain parameters like age, whether they're going to be affected by universal credit, location, and also whether we think they're currently online. So we're using the system to try and push stuff out and promote it to people more. We've also done an awful lot of training events and so on, as I said, and we've been involved more recently in the Go On Worcestershire, which is looking at digital champions and where all the Wi-Fi access points are in the area. And then the final bit, which I've already mentioned, is about the £15.45 broadband contract through Social Telecom, which is direct to our residents. What to me have been the learning points of this, you see, this is a more kind of commercial type approach, a business approach to trying to do some of these things. I don't think there is one answer. I think it's a combination of solutions. I don't think you can deal, you've got to deal with the issue in a joined up way, like a programme. You need to involve the residents and try and mobilise the residents to do it. If it's seen as something just for the organisation to save money, you get resistance from residents for it. And the people that get involved in it need to have boundless energy and enthusiasm and not get put off when things don't quite go well. We've been in like training courses where very few people turn up or no one turns up, and other times it goes well. So you've got to really have that enthusiasm to help people along. Long short-term initiatives I don't think work very well. It's been mentioned a few times. You've got to be consistent to keep it going on. If you do something and then stop, it all just fades away again. So longer-term planning linked to something like Digital Unite, you know, an external organisation seems to me to be the way to go. So ongoing support is the key to it. Wi-Fi and schemes, everyone's doing this. I know various people like Orbit and so on, and putting Wi-Fi into schemes. One of the things I am not sure of is how that's actually going to work. Everyone seems to be happy to make a capital investment, but no one seems to want to take on the long-term liability of paying for it, which is difficult if you're putting something in to go a 3-year contract for lines. So everyone sort of, well, everyone I've seen fudges it and say, we'll pay for the first 12 months and then the resident pays. And I'm not sure that really works because people drop out of it and they want BT Sport and there's all sorts of things going on, which makes it difficult then to cover the fixed cost of it. So the way, from a simplistic point of view, I view it is it's part of service charge. It's not the answer for everybody. It's difficult in existing. Spoken to an awful lot of suppliers over the period of time, and not everyone is the same. A lot of people are much more commercial about it. They're looking at the commercial business sense of what they're trying to do. And whatever you say, whatever you push the residents to, so here's the contact numbers. If you promote something and support something with your residents, they do regard you as responsible, so they come and ring you up or knock on your door. I'm sure you've all found that, I certainly have. So what next? Well, we're now looking at a 2 to 3 year programme of training and support, using digital champions, volunteers, linking to an external agency like Digital Unite, aiming to get up to this 85%. There's a new, I talked about the national tariff from Social Telecom. Social business is a certain way, isn't it? And one of the things that's going on now is competition has infected BT, and they have a new tariff out for people on various benefits. I wonder if you could raise your hand if you were aware of that. The rate is £9.95. Okay, not very many. The rate is £9.95 for people on certain welfare benefits, and we think that will apply to about 60% of our residents. It's not been announced externally by BT yet. It came in August, September, and it's actually on our website at the moment, and people are actually getting it, but no one's announced anything about it. And there's a variety of issues about it, but it is an unbeatable rate if we can make sure those details get thrashed through. It's like whether you're currently a BT customer, for example, that's one of the issues. We're looking to improve our mobile comms. We talked before about the rural side of what we do. We're very rural. Communications is a problem. We've got people doing remote working. Connectivity is a problem sometimes. Sometimes we have difficulty with the devices we're using. So we're looking to move that on now, because we're looking to see how we deal with this 15% of people we think won't be connected. So that's one of the big things. It's about re-engineering some of our services, reviewing our office footprint in terms of how we do things and the ways of working, extending our electronic document management system. Another project I had was to introduce that about 5 years ago. So we're looking for everything to be on the systems and available to people at whatever location they're at. We're continuing to develop services online, and the particular sort of areas we're looking at the moment is just in terms of our kiosks, in terms of Skyping. So, for example, in a kiosk and from the tablet type solutions, looking at Skyping through to duty housing officers, duty income people, duty ASB in the same way. So people can go in, press a button, and they're straight through to Skype to talk to somebody face to face, which is not the same as face to face, but is kind of an intermediate step as it moves forward. That's our approach has been. You can see some of the results going on. Some of the results are mixed. Some of the results are very good. The things which are directly in our control tend to be very good. Where the residents are involved, it's more of a struggle sometimes, and moving people and changing people's hearts and minds is a lot more difficult. I'll be here all day, as people have said. Any queries, please do come and see me. Thank you very much.